Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we're running on Hacker Time, 10 minutes late. So thank you to everyone who's joining us. I just got out of the shower, so I'm ready to go, and I have a couple interesting tools I'm going to share with you today, as well as talk about some of the things we covered last week, including the sour apple exploit, which was originally crashing iPhones on subways in New York, but looks like it has been patched now. Let's see. Hello, James. You were actually one of the first people I was going to talk about today because of your pointing out that Angelina was getting some press. So I'm going to go ahead and show that off first. It took me a little bit to realize what was going on. I think we produced this episode on my other channel, Redia, and this was a year in the making. So we shot this about a year ago. It's taken, some time to get new content creators up and running. And in this case, it did take a little bit, but when it finally came out, we got some press coverage. So this was really cool to see. So our friend Angelina, who's been on the show many times, made a project to detect aircraft spoofing. So most modern flight control uses a system called ADSB, or Automated Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. And I'm finally getting it right. It's been a while. And Angelina was using a Raspberry Pi to look for abnormalities in these transmissions that might indicate a spoofing attack. So we did a whole video on it, and she actually took this up in the air and tried it out herself, and then was featured on Tom's Hardware. So James, thank you very much for shouting this out. It's so cool to see somebody like Angelina, who's 16, student pilot and also a hacker, getting some of this recognition and getting some of this press. So if you haven't seen the video already, it's kind of blowing up. Honestly, it is, I think, our fourth or fifth most watched video ever on this channel now. So catching fake planes with Flycatcher is one of my favorites that I've done in a bit. Currently tied for the piece that we did on the Hackaday SuperCon. But yeah, so check that out if you haven't already. Cool to see some press coverage. Anytime we do something on our team that generates press coverage, I know we've kind of struck a nerve. And I think the last time that really happened was when I did some prototypes for detecting fake cameras that people were all worried about. All right, this is a good question. Hey, can you make a video on how to develop spyware and maybe more exploits if possible? Well, I can maybe do some on how to catch spyware. So a lot of the things that I used to cover on Nullbite were creating background processes and establishing persistence and basically doing the things on a red team that an attacker would do. But I really got to be careful because, as you probably know, our channel was taken down numerous times and had content strikes and all this other stuff because people really didn't understand what we were trying to teach. And sometimes we would toe the line, and sometimes we would make a title that was too spicy. But there was a period where we were having so many of our videos taken down that we had to fundamentally change what we covered and how we covered it. So me, as a hacker that primarily contributes education, I'm probably not going to teach you how to make spyware. I just don't like it, when it comes to all the things I could be teaching, something that can be that easily used to stalk just a private person. When it comes to larger things that are more about businesses and corporations, I don't mind teaching curb roasting and stuff like that. But for things that are just tracking an individual, I'm just not really interested in teaching that sort of thing. So I'll teach you how to detect spyware on your own device. For example, setting up your own network and then watching all the DNS requests that go through is a great way to see if something's running on your phone that maybe you don't recognize. But yeah, in general, I don't want to get taken down off YouTube again. And then I also generally don't support stalkers and exes who want to try to track someone. It's just not usually my thing. So excellent question. I'll teach you how to not do that, but not really something I can cover without getting taken off of YouTube. Let's see. Maybe you can create videos and actually post them on some Discord server, record and post there related to such stuff, which YouTube doesn't allow. This is this is an interesting discussion. So my team and I, when we started out making videos on Nullbite, we're basically open to teaching anything. We really didn't discriminate between something that was too spicy and something that could be on YouTube. And then, the content strikes happened and we had to start making decisions about what was too much. So we always kind of saw ourselves as the gateway people, teaching you how to try a project on a new concept that takes maybe I don't know, like a day, maybe 2 days to finish and really understand what you're learning. And that was a pretty good sweet spot because most people like us, we need projects to keep us going that are fun and interesting and engaging. The problem is like I can't go too far sometimes. Like if I go too far, for one, I lose people, and then my audience grows from anybody who's interested in this thing and is capable of pulling it together for one day to people who are like, you know, malware reverse engineers or like whatever else, and the audience shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. So like the more down the rabbit hole our channel gets and the more specific we get, the worse our content does and the more we're punished by the algorithm. So sometimes it's not necessarily even about like what gets us kicked off YouTube and what doesn't. Sometimes the things that get us kicked off YouTube are genuinely things that could get us in trouble. You know, like sometimes it's more about like how do we make content that is still really useful. So it's not like complete baby stuff, but at the same time, it appeals to the most people that would be able to use it as possible. And that's why I think Nullbite succeeded, is we towed that line pretty well. So like I've considered going over to some of those alternative platforms, but frankly, like when I go onto unmoderated content platforms, like some of the ones I've been recommended to, I just see like crazy content that's like, you know, propaganda and like hate speech and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to put my content here. So like normalizing cybersecurity as much as possible and ethical hacking as much as possible is really the struggle here. It's not so much about taking our like spiciest content and putting it elsewhere. It's like trying to find ways of talking about what we want to talk about while still appealing to most people, or at least like most people in the hacking like genre, you know. So yeah, that's also the reasons why we don't do series. You might have noticed on Nullbite, like we stopped doing like part 1, part 2, part 3 series. They do terrible. I would look at other channels and I would notice that you would get like a 50% reduction in the audience each time you publish a new tutorial. And what's funny is we made a series of videos on Android reverse engineering with our friend Nick. And Nick had just done a Google dorking video that's currently the second most viewed video on Hack5 of like all time. And like the series just bombed because the more specific the audience got, the fewer people like enjoyed it and the less it got shared and the fewer people saw it overall. And it just kind of made it difficult to do. So that's why in kind of nutshell, why I haven't really looked at posting spicier content onto like a Discord server or something like that. I think that there's bonus content all the time where we show stuff where I was just like, okay, like we don't need to publicize that one too much. Like for example, last week we were talking about the sour apple attack, which is embedded into this little microcontroller with the battery board. And we were talking about, you know, should I do a video like showing how this works? And in fact, the first comment that I'm going to respond to this week, and I'm going to hide this one. The first comment that I'm going to respond to this week is on the sour apple front. If you pull a denial of service on someone using it for medical treatment, like a diabetic or an insulin pump, you could find yourself in some serious trouble. Yeah, so I mentioned that this has been like iOS has been updated so that currently this Bluetooth like spam attack like shouldn't actually disable devices anymore. However, you don't know that every device around you has been updated or will be updated, especially in like a medical setting or a setting where it's very important that things don't get disturbed. You'll find that these devices might be the last to get updates because they just can't be taken down for a reboot or something like that. So the chances that a critical device that uses Bluetooth might still be vulnerable to this crashing them over and over are surprisingly high. So while I do think that this is like an interesting attack, and it does seem to specifically affect iOS devices. For example, this is not affecting like my Android device. I do think you need to be really careful when you're using these proof of concepts, especially if they're undirected or if they're not targeted. Like we've talked about the Wi-Fi deauthentication attack and how it's actually kind of a useful attack because it can be very precisely targeted. You can kick off a single device that you're allowed to kick off, and that's a perfectly legitimate use of that tool. This does not seem to be able to be targeted at any particular device. It's a proximity-based attack. So because of that, I would say it has the potential to be much more disruptive than an attack that can be targeted and tailored for a specific use. So if you're looking for reasons not to do this particular attack, getting in trouble because you disrupt a medical device should probably be somewhere around the top of that list. Okay, also Night Train, I am specifically wishing you luck for your 4th interview for your first job in IT, help desk engineer. We have one of our friends also that is, I think, interviewing for that exact same job, and I am also wishing him luck. He's actually one of the people that worked on Nullbite originally and came from like a film background, so now he's looking at getting into IT and hacking. So for both of you, I wish you a very, very good interview process. And good luck. Yes, John also created a video recently about the ethics of teaching how to create and utilize exploits. Yeah, honestly, this is when I would look at people on YouTube when we were originally doing research for the Nullbite channel. I would look at people who were making cybersecurity content, and I would immediately be able to tell if they had the common sense to know what was over the line. And people like John Hammond and like other contributors on YouTube who understand that line do really well, because their content might get flagged every once in a while, but it's not because they have ill intent or they're doing it wrong. It's because they're working on a risky subject. If you are unaware of the ethics and you're like, here's how to fish a grandma into giving you her social security check or whatever, and you provide a step-by-step process on how to do this, it just means you're tone deaf, because like security researchers don't want to be sharing or at least professional ones don't want to be sharing like a step-by-step guide to commit crime. That's not our goal. Our goal is to improve the overall state of things by allowing people to understand what the vulnerabilities and what the cracks in the foundation are in the security like assumptions around them. So yeah, like teaching individuals how to commit a crime is not something that we've ever been wanting to do. However, I have heard from some intermediary sources at conferences that there are lots of cyber criminals that enjoy my old content on Nullbite and think I'm cool. So clearly it works both ways. I can't control who sees and uses the content, and clearly some cyber criminals probably have benefited from the foundational knowledge that I put out there on Nullbite. But the difference is there's also a lot of people I know who have made career changes because of making the kinds of cybersecurity lessons I found so tedious and boring learning the first time a little bit easier for people to learn. So I think, the ethics of this are very tricky and mostly involve like how much of an indiscriminate or easy attack is this? And if it is indiscriminate and easy, how blown is it? I wouldn't feel bad about teaching how to exploit like a 10-year-old Wi-Fi vulnerability for the sake of showing off how it works. But if something's like a bleeding edge attack that still works against virtually everything, I might hesitate a little bit, especially if it's individual people that are going to be affected by it. So an example would be if there's like a business exploit in some like high level software that like corporations are using, but like it isn't even offered to individuals. Like honestly, like showing off how that exploit works, like those people have the resources to fix their stuff. But showing off how like an exploit that allows you to create a botnet from normal people's routers, that probably is not going to be a very good guide for us to publish. So that's kind of the line for me. I know. Oh yeah, and James is saying that John Hammond recently took down one of his own videos because the community thought it was too spicy. That takes a lot of being able to swallow your own ego and be receptive to the kinds of like people that you're trying to make content for. A lot of people can't do that, and that's why it's difficult to be a content creator. We've had to take down several really good ideas, and we've also had content creators drop out of our team because they make a piece of content that's just awesome, and then for some reason it can't be shown. I won't get too far into specifics, but there was one time when we were testing a concept, and we ended up learning a lot about postal regulations because we fortunately didn't do anything wrong, but we got really, really close. And a lot of people pointed out how close we were, and we had to take the video down and actually reshoot large segments of it, and it took weeks. So yeah, like being aware of like what the line is and when you might accidentally brush up against it is something you have to be very open to as a content creator, especially in cybersecurity, because you can go to jail, honestly, if you really mess this up. Not only can your content be taken down, but there's some things that I've seen people like post or brag about doing where like, wow, bro, like you shouldn't do that. That's dangerous. So yeah, very, very weird being a content creator nowadays, as TikTok has its own certain standards, which I would say are even more trigger happy. Like, for example, I created a vulnerable device where you can attack it and you're allowed to, and you can learn like password brute forcing. And I'm like, okay, I'm providing a playground for this, and I'm making it obvious what a safe place to do this would be. So no issue. Taken down for community guidelines violation for teaching like illegal whatever, so like even though I can try to make things as closed loop as possible, as educational as possible, it doesn't really matter sometimes when it comes to getting like a strike. But when it comes to like knowing your audience and like being able to accept that sometimes perfectly good content just gets taken down, it's rough. You lose money. People lose, like it's a big hit to morale. Like nobody likes to see a project they've worked on for weeks just get taken down for some technicality, but it happens, Yes, James probably does know what video that was. Yeah, yeah, just be really careful of like what types of batteries you ship in the mail. That's all I'll say. There's a lot of laws about that, and for good reason. It turns out if things go on an airplane and catch on fire, then that would be really bad. So that's now I know. And if you're planning on mailing any electronics, then there's a specific set of rules for how it has to be configured in order to make sure that that works. Actually, I'll be a little bit more specific. We ignited an online firestorm debate over whether or not it was permissible to mail an air tag. The consensus seems to be yes, it does conform to all the specific requirements and whatnot. And there's tons of other people who are doing it, but it was such a debate that we really like had to take down the content and like look at everything and kind of reshoot around what we thought might be problematic. So be careful shipping stuff in the mail. All right. Oh, here's a good question. What would you suggest someone who is new to InfoSec to focus on first, as in what areas of InfoSec? So, all right. So there's kind of two different areas that I would emphasize here. One of them is motivation and the other is career path. I pursued motivation and it always kind of confused people, but I already had a career path in mind. I was going to make content and make classes and like I want to like be able to make this easier for other people and also be surrounded by smart people. That's what I want to do. So I was not as interested in career path, and that completely shaped my educational journey differently. So I instead focused on projects that motivated me to learn more and taught me fundamentals with tools that I heard coming up over and over and over. And I found this to be a very fragmented approach, to be honest. So when I eventually decided to, I guess, LARP as someone who was going into like a cybersecurity career path, I went to school and I found that some of the foundational stuff really helped. I learned more about networking by failing one routing and switching Cisco class at a community college than I did in 2 years of producing cybersecurity content. So my advice would be find projects that motivate you to learn some of the tools that you're going to be using. Wireshark, Nmap, like all the basic stuff you see mentioned over and over and over. Find small projects that teach you, how to use those for everyday things, finding things on a network, detecting suspicious devices, like looking at packets and understanding how to write a quick packet filter. Those were all things that took me a while to learn, but they're things that I use almost all the time. So like, I guess the other common thread is if you can get access to a great networking class, like an IT/networking class. I had a really good teacher. And like I said, I failed that class, but I still learned more about the way the internet works than I'd ever known before. And I continue to use that knowledge on an almost daily basis. How IP addresses work, how MAC addresses work, like all that stuff made it so much easier for me to understand what the cybersecurity tools that people use are actually doing. So yeah, I would say cybersecurity tends to be pretty heavy in IT/networking stuff. I thought it would be heavy in computer science. It's not. I really don't use that side as much as I thought, unless you're going into reverse engineering, exploit development, whatever. So another part of it is follow your strengths. Cybersecurity is massive, dry, and boring, and you really need to find your own oasis when it comes to things that feel natural to you. Stuff that you would be doing for free if you had your money situation figured out and had time to kill. If I had time to kill, would be working with my friends on cool projects, building prototypes, and teaching people with them. That's just what I want to do. So if you can push yourself towards the thing that you would like to be doing and spending your time on, I think you'll probably have a better time of it, because cybersecurity is so big and it's not a monolith, that you can really find your own niche and potentially grow and stay there. And be really comfortable with the kinds of things you're asked to do. But again, like the hacker ethos is also kind of like pushing yourself into areas where maybe you're a little bit less comfortable. So those bite-sized projects that give you the motivation to try something new, like web application pen testing, is something I recently tried that I'd never tried before. And it turns out I think it's really fun. I think it's really cool. And I also really like making people angry by recommending OWASP Zap instead of Burp Suite. So wading into online debates and also like getting more familiar with the tools you would need for any one of these numbers of career path within cybersecurity, that would be my suggestion to you. Kind of a long response. Okay, so I wanted to, let's see. I was so fortunate that I had a couple CompTIA Network Plus class all last week for networking. Yes, I think that So that's a great comment. I think that networking gives you the fundamentals to understand how most of the tools you're going to work with in cybersecurity work. And because everything's connected, understanding the backbone of the internet and how like local networks work at least is going to be essential for using a lot of these tools. Like anytime you have something that like spins up a web server, it's like, okay, now you got to find it. So like teaching people the basics, like how to find your way on a network, like how to locate a device or how to forward something or how to work with routers or switches, like really, really helpful for cybersecurity in general. Okay. Postal regulations are nothing to write home about. That was a pretty bad pun, but I want to highlight it because it was still pretty great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about tools this week. I really like AI tools, as you guys know, and I want to show off a suite of tools that I have found that were all over Twitter, well, I guess X, formerly Twitter, the other day. So Meta was announcing AudioBox, a series of audio AI tools which allow you to either clone your own voice, which there's a fair amount of tools that do this, but it's still kind of cool to see. You can describe voices, and this is the one that I think is probably the most interesting. So you can create a unique voice that's saying, you know, whatever you want, and you can describe that voice. So like, you know, there's always those AI voices you can pick from, like, and they have like dumb names like Maple and Edith and whatever, to imply like the qualities of that voice. Well, you can just skip straight to customizing the voice yourself. So you can make a robot voice or an old person voice or a baby voice. Like it doesn't matter. However, it is locked down and it hates certain words. So I would say then the amount of censorship that it put on this, that Meta put on this, is pretty extreme. It really will prevent you from making a lot of types of voices. For example, like I think it didn't like the word sultry. And then for a while it just wouldn't create a voice that was female. So there's a lot of like weird restrictions and kind of like things going on with their censorship system. But here's my advice to you: misspell things terribly. If you just phonetically misspell things, it seems to bypass virtually all the censorship that they have on it. So I was able to get it to say a bunch of dumb like TikTok nonsense just by misspelling a bunch of stuff and getting it to ignore its parameters. So we also have restyled voices. So you can upload an audio sample and then add description. And one thing I want to also point out is this isn't just the voice. You can also generate background noise. So sometimes I'll have construction equipment and sometimes I'll have like frogs croaking. So being able to introduce clues to an audio environment lets you create a pretty interesting soundscape. But there's some things that could be improved. So we also have sound effects. So you can just straight up say, I want the sound of frogs croaking, and then put that behind your own audio. And then you can also kind of do the reverse of all this, where you can identify and destroy noises. So let's say that you have an audio recording where there's frogs croaking. You can tell it to identify the frogs croaking and remove it. I have not tried the magic eraser, but I have been using the describe voices, and I want to show a little bit about how it works. So this is going to be, I think, my tool of the week that I want to show off. But yes, Meta is going into AI acoustic generation, and they're providing a lot of their labs for public use. Now, you might also remember that Llama, that leaked AI model that a lot of people were building interesting things off of, was also from Meta. So Meta has really been focusing very much on AI tools and released a lot of interesting things to the research community. So, all right, so I'm just gonna type in some random TikTok stuff here, and then I wanna focus on the speaking. So in this one, I had a bright and happy, bubbly and vapid high-pitched voice that's bubblegum sweet and quite cute. Let's change it. A grizzled, low-pitch voice of an elderly smoker with a cough, the sound of heavy machinery in the background, and baby coos. Let's give it a whirl. That's pretty specific, right? I created background noise. There's a lot going on here, and my suspicion is something. Yeah. Okay. So here we get the typical censorship prompt, and this is where you get to play this game of like what is causing it to not like it. So let's get rid of this. Maybe it doesn't like Maybe it doesn't like grizzled. Okay, maybe it doesn't like. So as you can see, this is like using this tool is pretty tedious. Maybe it doesn't like elderly. Like there's so many things. Does it not like the word heavy? It's so hard to know. So, okay, let's go ahead and just look at some of the results I've created. So like, just, I want you guys to go into this with the expectation that like any part of this can cause it to no longer want to produce this. I'm just gonna try erasing half of this because maybe it's the prompt. We don't know. Maybe it loves it. So it doesn't provide you any feedback whatsoever as to what the issue is. So I have to say, like, ChatGPT will at least be specific sometimes. Maybe it doesn't like heavy machinery. Let's try that. Like what? Like it's really so confusing to know like why it doesn't like it. And so see, like, come on. Come on. I just kind of want to try to get one so I can show you guys what it looks like. But okay, yeah. So it looks like it was the description that was triggering the content filter. And as all of you saw, nothing I said was the least bit controversial or weird. So we have a result now. This is an old smoker with a cough. I'm going to turn this up and let's see what it sounds like.
When I mulch max, my microplastics all peak at the same time and make my dreams real. I cannot believe how busting mulch maxing has made my reality.
Okay, and it adds a little cough at the end. Okay, so if you don't know that, that's a script from a TikTok video. So I've taken that directly and copied it over. It's not my own. But we can see that it's adding some weird noise at the end. So I want to show off an earlier one I made where I had a similar description. I was like, let's do like an older voice with a cough, but listen to the sound it made at the end.
I cannot believe how bussing mulch maxing aspartame crystals has made my G act.
That's just a scream. I don't know what that is. So while this is an interesting technology and I think it's got a lot of cool applications, it will sometimes just scream. I didn't say anything about screaming. It just made the sound of a man screaming in the background. So would I use this on like a podcast or like something like that? No, I don't think I would. And I have heard a lot of people on TikTok using this audio generation tool. So as a result, I wanted to see like, does it sound similar to the scripts I've seen there? Like what exactly is going on here? But yeah, so Meta coming out with these new audio generation AI tools. Feel free to use them, but look out for the sound of the AI just screaming in the background unexpectedly and without prompting. So yeah, very locked down as well. You can see that there were a lot of things just in like a prompt talking about the voice I was trying to create that caused it to say like, no, I won't do that. So yeah, like if you have ideas, unfortunately, you're probably gonna have to modify them a little bit, but still, if you're interested in AI tools, especially free ones, this one just came out 2 days ago and I've been playing with it relentlessly. My friends are very tired of these audio recordings. Some of the other AI tools out there allow you to generate videos very easily based on audio. So I'm kind of interested in seeing what it would be like to take some of these AI generated voices and then be able to have another AI tool create video around it. So we'll see how that goes. All right. So let me check in on, oh, we've got a discussion about DNS spoofing for Chrome. I actually don't know anything about that. But James seems to know more about it. Oh yeah, because they do encrypted DNS by default. Yeah, so this is this has been an interesting discussion for a while because one of the things that I have enjoyed showing people is how you can learn about all the different devices all the different applications that are running, for example, on someone's smartphone by getting them to connect to a network and then just monitoring all the DNS queries. So that means like you can generally find out like which applications they have installed on their phone and which ones they're running at any particular time. The same is also true for which website someone's trying to navigate to. However, if you're using encrypted DNS, and this could effectively make it so that sort of snooping no longer yields the results that it used to. So interesting to see because DNS DNS spoofing and also DNS sniffing used to be a very, very interesting technique for learning what types of what types of applications are running on a particular Wi-Fi device. Hello from New Zealand, just made it. Hello. Got about 20 minutes left, so you're just in time. If you guys have any further questions also on AI tools, obviously this has been something I've been focusing on for a little bit. I've been running some of them locally, although the computer that I've been running them on just recently got a new security policy that makes it impossible to run most of these tools. But there have been a lot of new things that have come out recently that definitely affect the security landscape. Some of them are like evil chatbots or tools that allow you to very quickly stand up a phishing page or create infrastructure that looks really real. I think that in terms of the biggest impact to cybersecurity so far, the ability to generate more and better phishing material is really where AI has made it a lot easier for cyber criminals to profit. It's not really like helping out with the coding or anything yet, but it has been really good at standing up fake things and writing fake emails and mimicking styles. I think that that's really where a lot of the application of this has been so far in cybersecurity. All right, what else do we have this week? Let's go through some of the other comments. Actually, looking at the comments this week, they're all just nice. So thank you for that. Helpful. Every video is better and better. I'm awesome. Aw, okay. Well, thank you for that one. I am fast. Sure. Yeah, no. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You're fast. All right. And then we have another comment on the sour apple attack. So this is, as of the recent update, it's 2 Bluetooth notifications, then it's ignored on Apple devices. So being as this was targeting Apple devices, this kind of makes sense. We had one of our content creators over last week, and she was trying desperately to find a way to disable this attack. And anytime that she wasn't working on the episode she was supposed to, I would just kind of plug this back in, and it would make her iPhone pretty much unusable. There was no way to stop the notifications. You had to basically put it on airplane mode, and even then, BLE was still on, and I was still able to get some of these pop-ups to be annoying. So, yeah, quite an irritating little exploit, if not inherently malicious. Although it does seem, at least from this report, that Apple may have finally done something about it. Because yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to use an iOS device when it constantly spams you with different Bluetooth pairing requests. And I have to say, the range on this was pretty unexpectedly large. I was able to plug this in my room upstairs, and it went through the floor and was able to affect devices on the next floor over. So it's not like you have to be within like 3 or 4 feet of people. It's like everybody on the same floor as you in a house is going to be affected by it, plus people 1 floor up and down, which again, pretty crazy. So yeah, please be careful of using the sour apple exploit. It is definitely annoying, and as has been pointed out, it could potentially affect medical devices. Typically, again, we see that these are the kinds of devices that get updates last. They generally can't be like put down for updates and stuff. So yeah, something you definitely want to be careful about. Oh yeah, so there was a scandal with Sports Illustrated and articles made by AI with authors who do not exist and generated profile pictures. Yeah, I was actually reading that Michael Cohen, I believe, like his lawyer just filed a bunch of arguments that don't exist. The cases that they're based on are fictitious, or they don't actually have a basis in reality. They never happened, and the docket numbers are also not valid. So it seems as though this is like the second time that an AI has gotten a lawyer in trouble by citing things that don't exist, basically a hallucination. So I have to wonder, like, ChatGPT has actually gotten pretty good about hallucinations, now has internet access, so it's able to verify a lot of the stuff it used to assume. What AI model were they using that they were filing like legal briefings and such, and like it was giving them false information? Because if it was ChatGPT 4, that's not good. But if they were using like the free version of ChatGPT on legal documents, then yeah, that does make sense. Or if they were, yeah. So it definitely seems like a lot of things are like trying to be done by AI, and assume that people like read the output and verify it. But the problem is AIs are exceptionally good at creating content that feels or looks right. So because it looks right, if people don't scrutinize it, 80%, 60%, even 20% accurate might be good enough for the AI to think that it sounds plausible. And if somebody's only testing a little bit of what it outputs, they might not miss that the majority of it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of like people getting in trouble for using AI content without like scrutinizing it, and that these hallucinations are going to become increasingly both hilarious and also damaging when they happen. Let's see. Once you go AI without limits, you never go back. Yeah. Uh, Social engineering AI receptionist bots might be a big thing in the near future, if not already. I could imagine how like taking over like a business line or like being able to divert calls to like an AI like might be a way of potentially automating phishing on a huge scale. So even some of these data breaches where we see like lots and lots of customer information be leaked, having like the ability to stand up a giant virtual call center full of like virtual scammers and then go after all these people whose data has been breached, like that is probably going to happen in the near future as these sort of AI applications become able to fool people into believing they're talking to someone on the phone. And already I've seen some pretty convincing ones. So we'll have to see what happens with these large language models, making the power behind these chatbots a lot more up to par with what would be required to like fool a person in one of these like mass scale attacks. So phishing is probably going to get a huge boost, not just from all the material that can be written and all the fake websites and phishing stuff that can be made, but also from, yeah, the ability to stand up like convincing fake call centers or convincing fake receptionists. We'll see how that goes. Oh yeah, not even diverting calls, but dumping company directories or whatever the data receptionist AI has access to. Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting. So you're also talking about like being able to target like an AI receptionist and like, yeah. So we saw a PyTorch vulnerability. I think it was maybe 4 months ago or so that was specifically targeting the kinds of services that these AIs need to run on in order to be effective. So it was actually possible to like upload a malicious model and like overwrite the one that was there, or point to an external model or checkpoint that allowed it to be biased in ways that could potentially either leak data or scam someone. So yeah, the thought that like an AI receptionist could be exploited to turn evil, or to just dump all the information that it has, that is really interesting, especially because we've seen, at least I've seen in some of the AI CTS that I've taught with kids, it doesn't take a lot to fool ChatGPT. Sometimes just bamboozling it conceptually is enough to get the AI system to reveal something that it's not supposed to. And we've already seen, I think in the last couple of weeks, researchers were able to get ChatGPT to dump out like a bunch of its training data by asking it to repeat a word forever. And once it hit a certain limit, it started just outputting raw training data, which is potentially not good if you're training an AI on like proprietary or its proprietary data, or you're processing sensitive information that shouldn't be disclosed. So AI information leaks, like expect that to be a class of vulnerability in the future, as well as potentially standing up like malicious versions of an AI that performs a specific task. Someone's probably making that right now. Yes, almost definitely. Yeah, so we've also seen some new AI tools enter the ring. There was Google Gemini, and that one was getting some flack because of the way that the demo was constructed to make it look like it was doing natural video processing in like in real time and like coming back with conclusions. It was heavily edited, and it was like kind of touting some of its capabilities beyond what it can actually do in a way that was more of a, they're saying like a theatrical style. You know, they were adding some pizzazz to the demo. So it certainly made people think that the tool was a lot more powerful than it actually was. People are kind of really still recovering from that disappointment. But yeah, I actually haven't used Gemini myself yet. I don't know if you can. I don't know. Google's very fond of announcing things and then making it so it's not possible to use them. So I've been using Bard, which surprisingly was actually able to do a better job at finding some specific information. For example, the other day I had to find out what devices use an AT Tiny 84. And it was really hard. Like ChatGPT couldn't do it. I had it like do online research. It couldn't find it with Bing. And then I asked Bard to do it, and it was able to find several specific devices that contain that microcontroller. So there's still some utility in Bard, even though I've been let down by it many times. And Grok. That is another one I have not had time to use, nor do I have a Twitter or triple X, I don't know, like whatever type of account where you pay Elon Musk like however much money. I don't have one of those, so as a result I can't use it, although I did see it roast Elon Musk on Twitter, and that was truly funny. So having like the creation turn on its creator like almost immediately, it's kind of a little worrisome, isn't it? So we'll see how much utility these AI systems actually have as they grow. Not really looking at Grok too much, except for maybe roasting people. But you know, I'm interested in seeing some of the tools that both Google and Meta are coming out with, because they've invested a lot of time, energy, and money in making interesting AI tools. And a lot of them are publicly accessible, although, like I said, Google's not always the best about that. You probably get this question a lot, but what happened with Nullbite? I get this question all the time, and I've gotten really good at answering it fast, so let's go. I made Nullbite with one of my friends, and that expanded into, well, all right, I guess I can't do it that fast. I got hired by a company called Wonder How To write articles, and eventually got promoted to the editor, and I proposed making a YouTube channel, which they told me was stupid. So I got together with my friend, made it anyway, and they were like, okay, begrudgingly, we'll pay you like a very tiny amount of money to do this. So we built up a team, and over the years, we managed to get a little bit of a deal, so things were a bit more sustainable. And then during the pandemic, they cut off our orders, and they're like, listen, we're out of money. We're not going to be paying for Nullbite episodes anymore. So we'd stacked up like so many episodes that nobody even knew we were off the air for almost 8 months. But at that point, we'd already moved over to working with Hack5. We did that for a while, but then as they shifted more towards just kind of like covering their own hardware, we ended up kind of coming back to making our own channel, and also doing the stream and the security forward channel. So recently, the company that owned Nullbite went under. They went bankrupt, and they sold Wonder How To, the company that actually owns the Nullbite YouTube channel and also the Nullbite website, which, if you've checked it out recently, has been derelict for several years now. So they reached out to me not that long ago, and were interested in maybe collaborating. But the major sticking point is I'm never going to expose the people that I work with to being suddenly laid off because like some channels like no longer interested in like spending money on cybersecurity or whatever, you know, like, so we've kind of been back and forth about it. We'll see. But the channel's still up there. It's just owned by like a random third party company now that like bought the remains of this other company that I worked for a while ago. So it's, I've compared this to like kind of like a Taylor Swift situation where like I have all of my old discography that is now owned by some random company. And the other day, I even got a content strike on one of these live streams that we did for free on the channel. So I like woke up and there were like 2 content strikes on the security forward channel. I was like, what? So it's a little weird, you know, like I don't really know if I want to like focus just entirely on moving on, or if I would be down to do a return to the Nullbite channel and reach that audience, because the audience we earned is like almost 1 million people. So we'll see. I'm kind of still going back and forth about it. But yeah, the channel's been dormant for quite some time, and it's like stinky, you know, like it's old. A lot of the videos are like covering tools that have been either completely changed or they're abandonware. And I get messages on Twitter all the time like, hey, your video on this tool doesn't work. And I was like, I can't change it. You know, I can't access that video. Like, you know, like it's really frustrating. So I definitely don't want that happening again. So I don't know if there's a way where I can ensure that the people that I bring on, like the content creators, the hackers, have like a steady source of work, and they're not going to get like a surprise like email saying, oh, we've decided to go in a different direction. That's a kind of confidence that I think people need to contribute their best work. And that's really like the sticking point for any return to Nullbite, is to make sure that everybody that works with me isn't afraid that suddenly they're going to have to find a new job like abruptly, the way that they had to at the start of the pandemic when Wonder How To abruptly stopped supporting the Nullbite channel and also cut off our access to it. So that's what happened. That's a much longer explanation than I intended to give. But a lot of people have asked about that because, again, it's a channel with almost 1 million views. I have lots of videos with 1 million plus views, and I would love to fix them. Lots of them are out of date. I would love to remix them. I would love to like fix the details, but yeah, I just don't have access to it. And getting those content strikes kind of pissed me off. Not gonna lie. So we'll see what happens with that. I am very much wanting to like make more content that's better than what we did on Nullbite on that channel. I think we have a lot of great new ideas, and we learned a lot when we were working with Hack5 about storytelling. Like a lot of what we did wasn't just tutorials anymore. I don't know if you guys saw the content that came after Nullbite, but on Hack 5, we did like our defeating facial recognition episode, which is my all-time favorite episode. We did a lot of like really cool stuff that I'm proud of. And I really want to get back to making that kind of content. It just takes a lot of money per episode to do all the stuff that we really love to do and make people able to do their best work. So, for example, the episode that we did on defeating facial recognition, we did with like an editor who's like, okay, like I'm bringing like $100,000 camera to this shoot that you're paying me like $250 for. Like, there's no way we can keep doing this for this budget. But if I do it, then I'm confident people are going to see the idea and they're going to want to hire us to do it. So we produced this crazy episode. We hired like a makeup artist to like test all these different like makeup styles that could defeat facial recognition. We literally ran 2 different facial recognition systems and showed the results. It was crazy. It took us like a day of shooting, 3 more days of pick. It was like wild, but we put together one of the best episodes I think we've ever done. So yeah, like that's the long and short of the Nullbite situation, and also what I think we would do if we were to ever come back. Those sort of like storytelling episodes where we're able to take something like facial recognition and give you guys real information about how it works, how to break it. Those sorts of experiments were a lot of fun. And unfortunately, some of my favorite episodes that we produced later, like we did an episode where three hackers, me being one of them, all picked different ways to track one of our friends. And then we showed off like how effective those methods we came up with were. We're taken down off of Hack 5. So I would love to do more episodes like that and just be sure that like if I put in a lot of really great work into something that, you know, me and my friends have a lot of fun doing, it doesn't just get taken down. Defeating AI with stickers. Maybe. Maybe. I don't really have like a full response to that. I don't know anything currently about defeating some of the new facial recognition systems, but one of our good friends is crazy for defeating facial, or not defeating facial recognitions, defeating like image and other sort of like self-driving and those sorts of systems. There were a number of different, for example, like hoodies that have license plates on them that trick license plate readers, and other sorts of things that look like a stop sign or other things that cause an AI to misidentify something. There are also stickers that you could put on a stop sign that would basically like create such a strong weighted response, misidentifying the object as something else, that it causes the AI to not see it, basically. So I've seen some stickers that defeat AI, but it depends on what type of AI. You know, like a self-driving car, being able to make it so it can't see a stop sign by like putting a sticker that makes it think it's a lizard or something, you know, like that's the kind of thing that's been out for a while, and I think it's really interesting. And then again, like the kinds of day-to-day systems you'll see, like a automated license plate reader, injecting like junk information into that, I think is funny as hell. And I think that walking around a city and just causing like junk data to be inserted into like license plate reader systems, that's your right. So yeah, there are stickers that will defeat facial recognition and other sorts of things. We tried this in our facial recognition episode where we put a sticker of a smaller face by my face, and because I was wearing sunglasses, that kind of broke it up, and I also had the face like kind of by the bridge of my nose. It identified the sticker and not myself, not my own face. So it can be done. All right. I think, let's see. I think people wouldn't mind a downgrade on the video/audio quality as long as the content, as you said, is interesting. You guys are making very demanded content. Yeah, I agree. The thing is, like, as somebody who's trying to like do interesting things and have a career, like I don't want to make tutorial videos my whole life. You know, like being able to take a more, because we were looking at like how do we teach things that can't be taught in like a tutorial video, like the facial recognition episode and the tracking episode and some of the other ones that we did. Like there's not really like a way for us, or at least like there's not a way that we're going to get 1 million views or like 2 million views on a video that's just like a dry, boring tutorial, unless we just wait 4 years for it to slowly kind of creep up. So like being able to actually get attention on a video because it's interesting, exciting, or cool, as opposed to just useful, is something that we really spend a lot of time and energy on. And as a content creator, like being able to do different styles was really important for us to learn. So I agree. I think that some of the high lift episodes are, oh my God, they're tedious and they involve a lot of people. We have a team of like 5 or 6 people like per episode that has to be involved in order to make it look good. And it's exhausting. But the trade-off is like you make content you're really proud of. And like, even though like the week that I shot the facial recognition episode was one of the most stressful of my life, I'm still really, really proud of that episode. It was absolutely worth it. Can you reuse the brand name Nullbite and still get paid? How would that work? Do they own the rights? Yeah, so Nullbite was established before I got there. So the actual Nullbite brand, like all that stuff, like that is firmly associated with the company Wonder How To, who got, bankrupt and then bought by another company, thus absorbing their rights. And I don't think that I could just make another Nullbite and just like call it that and not get in trouble there. Obviously, like they purchased the intellectual property because that was really all that was like left over from that older company. So yeah, I don't think I can just make like Nullbite 2, but I can make derivative stuff, and I absolutely have. And by derivative, I mean like along the same lines, not like literally, just the same thing. But you might notice that my TikTok channel is Hackbite because I was working on Hack 5 and had just come from Nullbite, so Hackbite. So things like that, like sure, you can do that, but I can't just take like the raw name like Nullbite and walk it over and just like start making like Nullbite 2, like unfortunately. I have to be careful about that because let's say that like me and my team do a great job and the channel blows up, and then this other company that now owns the stinky old Nullbite that hasn't been updated in 4 years gets mad, as they might, because they're losing out on all the brand recognition. Like that could be a problem, and I wouldn't want to put anybody else that I work with at risk. So yeah, for now we stick to funny derivative stuff rather than being like head on with our old content. And it's funny because I'm basically competing with myself 4 years ago for some of the new content that we do if we're doing tutorials. So yeah, it's odd to have somebody else own your old content and then have your new content directly compete with your old self. Strange. And I will say also Nullbite was never profitable. Like the people that owned it never really figured out like a way to like make good money off of it. And as a result, like they did a bunch of crazy stuff. So there's like all these like try this hacking course for 50% off, like, in the captions of like every video or whatever. And we had no input on what those videos were. So people would like message us and complain like, oh, this course that I bought from Nullbite sucks. You're not even in it. It's like, they didn't even ask us, So yeah, Nullbite has never been profitable for the companies that own it because like it's different from every other thing that they're operating. Like, Wonder How To had a section that was called Gadget Hacks, which is super popular. And that's really where most of the energy and focus and whatever else went. Nullbite was always kind of the black sheep of that family. And it seems to continue to be the black sheep of the profile of this new company that owns it. So yeah, crazy to look back and see my old team like so young, like working on all these crazy sets, improvising all these various places, and know that like, I still don't own that content. So kind of annoying. Somebody managed to put a London Underground tube screen into recovery mode today. I'm not surprised. There's a gas station I drive by that has been like requesting the root password on the screen for like the Linux installation that runs the screen for like 4 months now. So seeing like crashed infrastructure in public never makes me surprised anymore, but it always makes me happy. Kody, you being the king on wireless audit, why are there not many tools on HCX dump tools? That's a good question. So there was some advancements in the way that you were able to crack Wi-Fi passwords like, oh my God, like 5 years ago, where they came out with a couple of tools that allow you to get wireless passwords from a Wi-Fi network that does not have clients connected to it. And one of the things you needed for that was this HCX dump tool. I actually did cover it on Nullbite, but I noticed not a lot of other people were. So my response to this is I think that it was integrated into other tools that are more popular, like Wi-Fi or AirGetIn and like some of the other tools that automate the process of Wi-Fi hacking ended up implementing these. I think Aircrack NG might also have integrated it, but don't quote me on that. I don't totally remember. But anyway, my thought is like, because this was such a useful thing, it was kind of like included upstream in a bunch of other tools. And as a result, like the same way you don't really hear people talking about like Pixie Dust or Reaver anymore, but at the same time, they're included in most Wi-Fi hacking like kits or tool sets. I think that it was just like kind of integrated into other tools that do Wi-Fi hacking stuff. Let's see. I don't know if you've seen some sub, but they have a massive backlash that they started using AI to replace their authentic real presenters. So it seems AI can't completely take over. Yeah. Yeah. There have been a lot of like attempts at like replacing human content with AI, and I've even dabbled with it myself. I've written a couple like blog posts on my own blog, like with AI, just to see what they're like. I find them to be obvious, like unless they're trained on a specific style and unless the content is like very dense. I think that they are a waste of time, and I can usually tell when I'm using an reading an AI response because it's so wordy and it just has no concept that it's going to die at some point. So it just like wastes tons of time. One bite. Okay, that's a pretty good derivative name. I like that one. I would pay for a Patreon if you maintained it or even had your own site/content system, especially if it's like less likely to get taken down. I appreciate that. And we currently, I've never felt right about just having like a Patreon for the sake of existing. You know, it's nice, but like I prefer to provide something. So like we made open source tools that you can buy if you want to support us. And then also we make like online classes and we do events pretty often. So if you check out Cyber Weapons Lab LA, we teach a lot of classes. I mean, like it's kind of the same concept as a Patreon, only I'm working for it because I feel like Patreon subscribers would deserve something anyway. So I very much do appreciate it. But yeah, if you want to help support me on that, I've set up a couple things that where you actually get something for when you do that. Pivoting, what projects are you working on lately? What a great question. So currently, I have been exploring more about the process of using QR codes for phishing. So if I plug this tool in, I've got a USB nugget, and currently, you probably can't see it on the screen, but it is creating a QR code. So I figured out how to use CircuitPython to write QR codes to the screen. And then because I can create arbitrary QR codes, I can make them tracking QR codes for people that scan them to basically be able to detect when their phone is near. So if I want to demonstrate how QR codes can be used to track someone, I can generate this QR code, display it on the screen, and then once someone scans that QR code, I can basically start tracking their phone as they attempt to connect to this network. So it lets me know if someone who's scanned the QR code is nearby or if their device is nearby. And potentially, if I can get it to solicit a connection, I can also start tracking down the physical location of that device by signal strength. So still a little bit of a leap from just getting the QR code working on the screen. I'm currently working on getting it to generate the network. And my biggest challenge was the reason this works is it creates, this is a QR code that's encoding for a hidden Wi-Fi network. So that means that any device that scans it is going to be calling out, requesting for this network all the time. And it basically like tags them like a wild animal in a study with like a radio collar. That's and this thing is constantly like outputting the name of the Wi-Fi network here, because hidden networks are different from normal networks. They don't broadcast their name. And as a result, the device that's trying to connect to them has to constantly like call out to see if it's nearby. So by scanning this, I'm basically causing the device, like a phone or whatever, to start calling out for that network over and over and over. So the next phase of my program is probably going to be to put this into monitor mode and have it listen for any device that's attempting to connect back to a non-existent network, any device that's calling out for it. And if that happens, then I can display the relative signal strength and we'll get an indication of how close that device is. So the idea would be you whip this out of your pocket. If you have brief physical access to the phone you want to track, you scan the QR code or have them scan the QR code. Once they've saved that hidden network in their phone, you should always be able to track them based on their phone calling out for that network. Now, another challenge was I wasn't sure whether or not a hidden network, so let's say that your phone tries to join a hidden network and it's not there. Later, I create a network that's not hidden, but it has the same information. Will your phone join it? The answer is yes. At least iOS devices, according to the experiment that I did about an hour and a half ago. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is using CircuitPython to take advantage of QR codes as an attack vector. So that if you scan it on a smartphone, I can track you, and potentially I can also cause your device to connect back to me and like pop up a phishing page or something. So yeah, like I really want to make a proof of concept for explaining how how a QR code can be used as an attack vector for a mobile device, both for tracking and then potentially doing all sorts of interesting data stuff. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, and I think it's pretty cool. I've enjoyed learning about how these hidden Wi-Fi networks worked. All right, I think we're pretty QR codes or stickers. I'm just saying. Actually, another thing I've been doing is trying to make more durable QR codes. So I have like a heat printer, but obviously the sun and other things will degrade it really quickly. So if I make like a prank QR code and put it somewhere, eventually the sun will fade it to the point you can't see it. It takes like a couple months in winter. It takes even less time in the summer. So I've been making 2-layer tall 3D prints that are like a background color and then like a data layer in a different color. So it prints the first layer and then I switch the filament color from like black to white and then I print on top of that first layer and I'm left with a 2-layer thick plastic print of 2 different colors with a QR code that will never fade. Or at least if it fades, it's going to take like a really long time. So making super durable QR codes and then making QR code attacks. That's kind of what I've been working on this week in preparation for doing some demonstrations on how this all works. Do I have a channel on Odyssey? No, I don't. Actually, a couple people recommended that I make a channel on Odyssey, and as soon as I logged in, I just saw a bunch of hate speech like on the front page, and I just logged right back out. So yeah, I would rather be careful about the content I make on YouTube than be on a platform that also like puts like racist videos right next to my video. I just don't want it. I don't want the audience, I guess, is like if the crossover between those audiences is the kind of people that get me in trouble for misunderstanding and misusing the stuff I teach in the first place. Not to generalize, I'm just saying from what I've seen on those platforms, making hacking content on them isn't as fun, I guess. Stephen Colbert had an issue using his own name and likeness after he left Comedy Central. Copyright could get weird. Yeah. I would say once you work with the company developing a bunch of intellectual content, unless you have a really clear amount of permission to reuse it or like recycle elements of it, you have to be super careful. So that's why like I always come up with like a discrete concept for like a company that I'm working for. And then if I want to go on and make a new concept, I just can't reuse one that I've done before. So if I wanted to make a tutorial based series and just change up the format a little bit, that's no big deal. But if I wanted to call it Nullbite 2, probably a bigger deal. If you dynamically generate the QR code, you could present a real Wi-Fi network the second time the photos scan the nugget. So it doesn't seem sus to the end user. Yeah, no, that is definitely possible. There's a lot of ways that you can use the QR code to inject interesting information and then react with the Wi-Fi network, both to track them or potentially to pop up like a phishing network later, or even take up their data over their data connection later with another tool. Really interesting work. I also tried to get one of these to monitor my 3D printer, and there was a whole project for this, and it will not compile and it will not work. So I gave up on it. But that's most of what I've been working on lately, as well as trying to rig up some special versions of the Nugget that are using all the additional add-ons and modules my team has made for research. This is a special S3 Nugget that has like a LiPo battery add-on and some other like cool stuff added to it. So planning for the C3 conference and all the cool stuff I want to debut there, as well as workshops I'm going to be doing there, is also what I've been working on. So I think I've finally completed the outline for a Wi-Fi self-defense workshop. It's like 5 Wi-Fi attacks and how to stop them. So it's definitely going to teach the offensive attacks, but it's also going to teach you how to defend against them and detect them. So that's going to be super fun. And I'm thinking of actually doing a class while I'm in Los Angeles in a week and a half. So if any of you are in town, I may actually do a class just to get the whole team together and hang out at Null Space Lab. So stay tuned for that. If you're going to be at C3 at Chaos Communication Congress in Hamburg, I'm going to be there from the 27th to the 30th. That's, I guess, when it runs. So I will be doing some classes there as well, and I hope to see some of you there. Why don't people combine robotics and hacking more? I think it's because there's 2 different flavors of hackers, really. There's like hardware hackers and software like people. And like hardware hackers are the ones that are wanting to work with components and electronics, and they want to learn electrical engineering, and like they use programming to control hardware. Whereas software developers are much more computer science heavy. Like they might have like some networking stuff going on too, but in general, like they're very focused on learning programming, like the software side of things. So those 2 groups of people are not actually all the same personality type. Like I found that computer science people were really different from electrical engineers, down to like the philosophy of how stuff works. Like coming from computer science to electrical engineering, I would like put together a circuit and then I would like plug it in and everything would go right and be like, something's wrong. Like there's something wrong here that's so wrong that it looks right, but like there's no way this is working the first time. I was barely paying attention when I did this. And all the other engineers like didn't understand why I was so pessimistic, but it's because with computer science, you know, my programs never worked the first time. There was always a compilation error. There was always something I missed, and that was just part of my process to expect that. So yeah, like there's different philosophies, there's different like mindsets when it comes to like these different parts of hacking. And that's why I said earlier, like there's really a lot of different career paths based on what you're good at and the way your brain works in cybersecurity. It's not all the same. And yeah, like the mindset is like very different depending on what side of cybersecurity you go into. So robotics, I personally love robotics. I think that electronics and electrical engineering is really where I find a lot of joy and magic. And that's why I'm currently surrounded by electrical components, is because I like very much. I have a lab right over there for making prototypes. That's my thing, but it's not everyone's thing, and that's why you won't see as much as the as the crossover. Why are all the security conferences in the US? The EU is just left out. No, bro, I'm going to the C3 conference in Germany. Come hang out there. So C3 conference in Germany. There's also Chaos Communication Camp, which I hear is really fun. I haven't been able to make it. And then there's May Contain Hacker. There's a bunch of security conferences that are in Europe. I just don't get to go to them that often because they're far and I hate flying. Yeah, so I'll deal with it. I'm gonna take a bunch of Dramamine and wake up in Germany on the 25th. But yeah, it's there. Don't worry, there are some good security conferences in the EU. It's not just DEF CON. In fact, I would say that C3 is perhaps my favorite conference, although DEF CON is certainly more familiar. What makes one a hacker? Is it something that is bestowed upon you? I think what makes someone a hacker is two things. One, all right. One thing that I think makes someone a hacker is the desire to go outside the norm in terms of using technology or learning about technology in order to customize, personalize, break, fix, or modify it. If you are merely a user of technology and you are not curious about it, you're not curious about how it works, you don't want to try anything new, you don't want to get at the settings, you're not like a big nerd about it, you're not like a video game cheater or like, you know, something like that, like then maybe you don't have the mindset that like a typical hacker would have. Because I think one thing that most hackers have in common is they either like to tinker with stuff or they like to get into the details of things that they find really interesting about technology. I think most hackers are like technologists at some level. But another thing I think makes like hackers in a more, I guess, like in the way that I consider a hacker is like either making contributions or being a part of the hacker community. So that means like seeking out other people that are interested in the same things as you and not being completely isolated off by yourself, like doing everything like, you know, like in isolation. I think that like being a part of the hacker community means learning from other people and then contributing what you can. And even just like participating in discussions and staying current about stuff. Like if you are a curious person, a technologist, like somebody that likes to tinker, take things apart or break things, and you engage with the hacker community, you learn things, you contribute things, like you give feedback on other people's stuff. Like that to me is what makes someone a hacker. I don't think it's really bestowed on you, and I don't think it requires a lot of experience. I think it's a mindset that drives people to come together over some of these common things. Are you interested in OSINT stuff too? Yeah, I actually got a bunch of jobs where I was able to go to Norway to teach journalists about open source intelligence and investigations. And it was so much fun. It was super challenging. It was one of the most interesting trips of my life. But yes, I did a bunch of stuff on Maltego and also general open source and database research that a lot of people who, you know, don't spend so much time online really found useful and interesting. So a lot of what I teach was kind of specific to the United States in terms of database research, but I was able to adapt it for my Norwegian audience. And they are still some of my favorite people. I have to give a shout out to Ståle and then the Norwegian Institute of Journalism. We ended up taking them to DEF CON years later. And like, it was incredible. Like some of the people there did a documentary on it. A lot of them got great sources. It was so cool to be able to introduce a bunch of reporters to the hacker community from the inside, you know, like giving them the inside perspective on what it is to be a hacker and how to communicate with us, you know? So that was probably one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. And it came as a direct result of teaching open source intelligence techniques. So yes, open source intelligence is definitely a focus. All right, I think we are Why did you leave Nullbite? Unfortunately, you'll have to go to rewind because I spent like 10 minutes like ranting about that. However, don't worry, I answered that question in detail. It's pretty hilarious that people still fearmonger about someone having your IP. Okay, I'm going to tell this one last story and then I'm going to go for the day. So we did a Nullbite episode on like how to like hack a webcam or how to like see the video from a webcam, like provided it's connected to, you know, a network you have the password to and whatnot. And it was cool. And then we kind of left it up and it was just like facing outside of my house. But I just didn't really think much of it. And at some point, I don't know how this happened, but the port for the router like publicly was being forwarded to the webcam. I don't think I set up that rule. I don't know if it like configured itself somehow or like what exactly happened, but I noticed on one of our episodes that I actually leaked my IP address. And I was like, oh, well, what's the worst that could happen? So I went to the IP address and it immediately went to the live footage of the webcam outside of my house. So sometimes it matters. I would advise everybody check out your own IP address, like see what's connected. I had never done that before. And the fact that I'd accidentally, or maybe my roommate, like I honestly don't know what happened. Like the fact that like some halfway configured thing was causing this webcam to be exposed publicly was definitely a concern. And also I would say like of all the fear mongering, anytime that I show a Wi-Fi network in any of my content, someone in the comments always has to look it up on wiggle.net. Like I haven't said that a million times and then show like the rough neighborhood in Los Angeles where I used to live. I'm just like, so yes, sometimes leaking information will get people who feel like they're smart and want to like humble you to just like show, like just try to like give you the address to your own apartment. And that's really annoying. So I do make an effort to try to blur out that information just to discourage people from doing that. Cause it's very annoying. And I feel like it's kind of like baiting them at a certain point to like put the information out there, or at least like not make an effort to like remove it. It's not like it's like super secret. Like, I don't care. It's not hard to find. It's just, tremendously annoying that if you do put out information in a video in cybersecurity that people think is sensitive, they will fully use it and come back into the comments on main and just blast your address in the chat. Again, I don't live there anymore, and it is a pretty rough area. Look up the history of the area. It's where a very famous gang was based for many years and still lives. So I don't necessarily encourage anybody to hang out in that neighborhood, but the fact that so many people have posted it online publicly, just as a result of my Wi-Fi networks being in some of the videos I've made on Nullbite, is certainly something I have to share with people who are considering making their own content, especially if it ever involves Wi-Fi in any way, shape, or form. All right, so does the term master hacker exist? So I think that the person that the person that I took over Nullbite from called himself Master Occupy the Web. And I've seen him around on the internet, and like I really don't have like too much to say about that approach, other than that like I think that my approach has always been to be a fellow beginner that's on their journey and trying to like share what I've learned and make it a little bit easier for other people. Having like a secretive sensei that's like a master hacker that supposedly knows everything flies in the face of everything I know about cybersecurity. Nobody knows everything. And like there's so many niche or specific areas, and technology is evolving so fast that no one person is able to be a master of everything. Like it just takes, frankly, like so much time and energy to stay current, even, that turning around and then making content around that is just crazy. So I don't know. I think the master hacker thing is perhaps a little bit tied to ego for people that see not a lot of distinction between their own identity and their work. But this like it's a passion, it's a job. It can be a personality type, I guess, but I really don't think that like that someone's like level of skill, especially when it's like made out to be larger than life, is like the biggest thing that makes them a good teacher. I think I've had lots of teachers who are very skilled and knew a lot, and they just like weren't good teachers. One of the things I think is like making it accessible and making people feel comfortable. But some people really do require that kind of gimmicky, like, I'm the master, like you're going to learn, like that's just what they want. Like they want to find someone who gives off that energy, and I'm probably not the right teacher for them, because like I'm never going to claim that I'm the best programmer. I like my code, is included in that like GitHub seed, like, or the GitHub like forever repository, and it's been featured on like Kitploid and other stuff, but it sucks. I've had like a year or two of like Python and a little bit of C++. Like I'm terrible at programming, and I acknowledge that. So people that consider themselves to be master hackers, I'm like, it's so big though. Master hacker at what? You know, you really need to start like getting more specific or niching down to become, in my opinion anyway, consider yourself to be a master hacker. Because like if you're a master hardware hacker, okay, I believe that there's lots of people that are like master hardware hackers, but master hacker at everything, like, okay, maybe. Okay, all right, everyone, that's all the time we have for today. I want to shout out, as always, our sponsor, Varonis, for making this happen every week. If you want to help out the stream, you can do it for free by going to varonis.com/Kody, that's Kody, and they will know that you checked it out. They'll know that you like the stream, and we'll keep on doing it. So I appreciate it if you guys can do that, if you want to help us out. Also, you can check out our Discord community. I'll drop the link in the chat. James has been a very active participant there, and we also have lots of other great people who have been answering questions before I can even get to them and showing off news. In fact, the other day, I was like talking about the sour apple exploit and showing a video that somebody in our Discord community had made and shared with me like days before, and I just had missed it somehow. So lots of cool, awesome stuff in the Discord community. I will drop it in the chat and in the description. But yeah, good to see everyone today. And it's very cool to be able to get together twice a week and do this. Sorry, I'm going to invite, copy, and here you go. All right, everyone in the chat. It's been fun answering questions. You can also join us on Friday, where we're going to go over all the hacking news of the week. If you got questions, I'll try to answer them on Friday, but you know, a lot happens. So sometimes we barely get through it. You'll also see Killian on there on Friday. So if you miss him, don't worry, he'll be back. But all right, so have a good week, everyone. We will see you on Friday. Goodbye.